Plants are the backbone of every PvZ game. You see, without them we'd be utterly defenseless against all the zombies. So what if we introduced a new challenge to the game, where everything is flipped sideways? Literally. My plants dropped on the floor, my lawnmowers gone. And if that wasn't bad enough, my explosive plants are also nerfed so I can barely take out a basic zombie now. So the question arises, can I still survive a zombie apocalypse like this? Well, I guess there's only one way to find out. We're starting things off with level 1-1, and right off the gate, we've got a huge problem. While we can take full advantage of the infinite sun farming exploit by not dropping a single pea shooter down until we stack enough sun, we have no direct way of taking down any of the zombies. This is where the first exception for our challenge comes into play. You see, for the first two levels of the adventure mode, our lawnmowers are still active. This means that we can easily stockpile sun in level 1-1 while letting the zombies march forward just long enough for our lawnmowers to do their job. Level 1-2 gives us a golden opportunity to exploit the infamous 50-second spawn rule. Just like in level 1-1, the tutorial urges you to plant 3 sunflowers down. But here's the catch. As long as we keep it to 2 sunflowers or less, no zombies will be able to ever spawn for the first 50 seconds of the level. Level 1-3, however, was just brutal. This was the first level that hit me with a massive problem. It literally took me 36 attempts to beat. You might be asking yourself why. Well, it's pretty simple. This is the first level where we lose access to all of our lawnmowers, and it's also the first level that introduces coned zombies to us. Normally this wouldn't be such a big deal since we've already unlocked the cherry bombs by now, but remember that cherry bombs in this mod are heavily nerfed. They only deal 1/6 of their usual damage, meaning coned zombies need 2 full explosions to go down now. It took me forever to figure out the strategy, but I eventually found a solution. You'll need some good timing and a lot of RNG. Firstly, you have to take out the first 2 zombies with a single cherry bomb to maximize your sun economy early on. But for that to happen, the first zombie has to spawn in a lot slower, while the second zombie has to spawn in with a much faster movement speed. Next, you need to pray that no coned zombie spawns in lane 2 before the final wave. If you're able to pull that off, you'll have no problems to clear the final wave with 2 cherry bombs by stalling the last zombie for long enough with your sunflowers. Oh, and one more crucial tip is to always leave the middle lane open for your cherry bomb placement, because we haven't unlocked the shovel yet. Level 1-4, while seeming a lot harder on the surface with 5 lanes to defend instead of 3, was actually really beatable thanks to one of the most important plants in this challenge. I'm talking about Walnut. I don't think I have to explain much to why he's so important here, so let's just move on to level 1-5. Level 1-5 is our typical walnut bowling level, but this time with a twist. You see, thanks to the 90-degree rotation, the walnuts now have a downwards velocity, which makes lining up your shots entirely different. Explodonuts are also nerfed on this level, as they do count towards the explosive plants, but otherwise this level wasn't too hard to beat. Level 1-6 through level 1-9 didn't present me with any major roadblocks, so I'll just use this as a perfect opportunity to talk to the mod creator of PvZ Flipped and PvZ Sideways himself. He's known as Exter. He's a PvZ tryhard and has already helped me with countless videos, including my old and cancelled PvZ Impossible mode mod, which I've worked on for a while. So, greetings Exter.
Hello, how's everything doing?
Alright, let's get into it. I've got a few burning questions for you. First off, the obvious one. What inspired you to create these mods?
I wanted to make every plant like reverse repeater. I like the slow base breaker levels, so I thought about the gameplay changes and the restrictions the player would be presented in, just like Zomboss trails and 5-1.
Secondly, how long did it take you to develop PvZ Flip from start to finish?
Development started on July and the mod was published on November, so 5 months, although there were a few breaks in between. I thought it was going to be easy, just changing the projectile's trajectory to be negative. This worked perfectly for the basic plants. However, 3-peter, split pea, starfruit and even cactus didn't work with this. Most of the time was spent fixing visual box, fixing the plants and play testing the levels.
And finally, what mods do you have planned for the far future? Let's hear them.
The goals I had were already achieved. PvZ Drop now exists and PvZ times any HP was also released a few days ago. So maybe if an idea pops in mind. Thanks to you for having me here. Good luck, you will need it.
Alright, let us continue on level 110. It easily ranks as one of the hardest after level 1-3. The micromanaging here needs to be on point, as well as the cherry bomb RNG at the very end. Oh, and before I forget, let's talk about Chomper real quick. In this challenge, he's been completely reworked. No more swallowing zombies whole, as that would make things way too easy for us. Instead, he now bites the zombies, dealing damage somewhere between a pea shooter and a repeater. To make things trickier, he only attacks zombies 1 time tile below him, so his choice of placement is really crucial here. For strategy, we're putting all of our potato mines in lane 1, since it's the only lane that can affect all the other lanes with no interference. Beyond that, the rest of the level is pretty straightforward. Let's wrap this up and move on to the next stage. Level 2-1 introduces us to mushrooms, a plant that's usually insanely overpowered in most PvZ mods. In fact, it's so strong that in a base game you could practically beat the entire night stage with just mushrooms alone. But not in our mod. To balance things out, we've nerfed it significantly, limiting its range to just one tile. This means that you will now need about 5 mushrooms to just take down a single basic zombie. It completely changes the game's dynamic and cranks up the difficulty for the night stage, making it more challenging. 2-2 was easily beaten with the help of Snow Peas, and honestly, it didn't really add anything too interesting, so let's just jump to the next level. Level 2-3 unlocks this Fume Shroom, but just like the Pushroom, it's been hit with a big nerf. Its range is now limited to just 2 tiles below. While that might not sound like much, it's actually proportional to the wider 9 tile board we're used to in the base game. As a result, you'll have a plan that feels a lot less dominant and forces you to think more strategically. Level 2-4 handed me my first death ever since 1-3 because I experimented with repeaters instead of Snow Peas, a decision I immediately started to regret. That said though, once I adjusted my strategy back to the Snow Peas, the level turned out to be very beatable. And same as before, there isn't too much else to say here, so let's keep on moving forward. Level 2-5 is yet another special level, but this time, thanks to Extra's brilliant idea, it increases the challenge a lot in a whole new way. Instead of zombies walking horizontally like we're used to, they're now able to move vertically instead. Your goal is to stop them from reaching the bottom of the screen. This twist completely flips the minigame strategy on its head, making it way more challenging than before. And if you're up for an extra challenge, you can aim to beat the level without the use of any Gravebusters for some serious bonus points. Level 2-6 introduces us to Hypnoshroom, and just like Chomper, it's undergone a massive rework. Originally, it could only target zombies with 300 HP or less, but now it's a bit more versatile. If a zombie has more than 300 HP, the Hypnoshroom deals 300 damage. If it has less than 300 HP, it will hypnotize a zombie instead. This change keeps the plant useful, while also not turning it into a silver bullet counter against football zombies. And speaking of football zombies, they are now a real threat, especially with no lawn mode. That makes this level a lot more trickier than before. By the time I hit level 2-7, things got even harder because of it. I was eventually able to beat it with the same old Snopey strategy from earlier. Level 2-8 and level 2-9 also don't bring anything too groundbreaking on the table, except for Shroom, which, to be honest, is pretty useless here, since the zombies are naturally a lot closer to your plants than traditionally. Because we're also unlocking Ice Shroom and Doom Shroom in these levels, they're actually the easiest levels to beat in this entire stage. Level 2-10 was incredibly stressful because of how strong and plentiful the football zombies are on this level. By constantly stalling them with ice shrooms and cheap little mushrooms while building up enough explosive power to take them down, we're able to barely make this work. To make things even harder, the hitbox is terrible, making it tricky to land Hypnoshroom damage effectively. On top of that, you're also able to use some RNG manipulation on your conveyable. By saving up a lot of one plant, for example Scary Shrooms, it makes them less likely to appear in your seed bank, so it's worth considering stockpiling those useless mushrooms to improve your chances of getting something better. With that being said, let's move on to the pool section of this video. The first 3 levels in pool were pretty straightforward, so I guess we'll just quickly skip over them. The real challenge begins with level 3-4. This is where things get bad really fast. It marks the very first 3 flag level, and that just means one thing: a massive zombie density. To make matters even worse, the game now throws a swarm of snorkel zombies in your way, and they're a nightmare to deal with if your walnuts are still on their cooldown. We've decided to change the 3-pitter shooting pattern as well. As a gameplay design choice, it can no longer hit zombies to the right of him, keeping it from being a straight up better version than most of the other attackers. After a bunch of attempts, I was eventually able to beat this stage. Level 3-5 is our next special level, and while it doesn't offer anything new to us, it proves to be a really tough level to beat, mostly because of the nerf to cherry bombs, which can no longer take out football zombies. The solution to this level turned out to be surprisingly complex. Relying solely on walnuts and cherry bombs just wasn't enough. The key was to smartly utilize our pea shooters in the water lanes to provide the extra DPS needed in order to progress from this level. Let me just start by saying one thing: Zambonis absolutely suck in this challenge. They're an absolute nightmare because you have almost no reliable way to deal with them. You have to spam every single explosive you've got and watch as your carefully planned defense just crumbles into ruins. And let's not forget that you can't even rely on lawnmowers to save you here. But because I apparently love making my life harder, we've also reworked Spikeweed in 3.7. Instead of being the silver bullet counter to all vehicle based zombies, it now just deals 300 damage on each vehicle it hits. Extra also also pointed out that in its original state, Spikeweed was basically just a better version of pea shooters, so to fix that, we've given zombies the ability to eat Spikeweeds now. Well, since they're no longer placed on the ground, surprisingly that makes the level way more enjoyable for me, as Zombonis now are a serious threat, similar to football zombies from before. Level 310, however, was a pure nightmare. It's a 3-flag level that spawns in zombies 3 times more often, and for the worst part, it's also a level where Zomboni will absolutely crush the defense because of how often they spawn. To make matters even worse, the conveyable seems to love giving you the most useless plants imaginable. After a few attempts, I was finally able to beat this level live on a Discord stream, which was also hosted on my server. But let me tell you just one thing, the amount of RNG needed to pull this off was very brutal, especially at the very end. I was beyond relieved to finally move on from this hell of a level. Level 4-1 as well as level 4-2 didn't offer too much of a challenge and were kinda easy to clear, especially now that we have access to Ice Shroom as well as Doom Shrooms. Level 4-3 throws a curveball to us with the introduction of balloon zombies. Thankfully, with the sideway cactus, we're able to deal with them pretty easily. Then in level 4-4 we unlock our second counter to balloon zombies, which is Blover. But watch out what happens when I use it here. That's right, it only clears balloon zombies in the bottom lane, meaning any balloon zombies that is not in lane 6 now needs at least 2 Blovers to be taken out. This is a cool throwback to the time when Exo decided to troll me with his Blover in PvZ Flip. It definitely changes how we approach fog levels now, since Cactus is a lot more useful, while Blover isn't that brain dead auto pick anymore. And then there's level 4-5. Oh boy, where do I even begin? Let me just start by saying this. This level has been, without a doubt, the hardest and most impossible part of this entire challenge. To understand why, let's just break it down in the first stage. You're up against 1 Buckethead zombie and 4 basic zombies. Buckethead zombies require 5 squashes to be defeated, and we're also given exactly 5 squashes. Luckily for us, 4 squashes and a few pea shots will also do the trick here. As for the basic zombies, we're given 5 pea shooters, which is exactly enough to handle a single basic zombie. Of course, that requires the zombies to not spawn on lane 1, which is completely RNG dependent and also where the mod intentionally manipulates the RNG. Meaning, it won't allow zombies to spawn on lane 1, which shifts the focus more towards skill-based gameplay while also reducing some of the RNG aspects with the vases. In stage 2, we have a much bigger problem. This time, we're facing a football zombie that requires 6 explosions to take down, a Buckethead zombie and 5 basic zombies. Sounds bad, you might be wondering? Yeah, it gets even worse. The game only gives us 4 squashes now. Mathematically speaking, this level should be outright impossible, but this is where we have to start thinking outside of the box, you know? The key to beating the stage lies into using something that doesn't even exist in this level yet. Yes, I'm of course talking about the Rake. And since they're completely unchanged in this mod, they will still deal their 1800 damage, which is more than enough to defeat a single football zombie or a Buckethead zombie in a single hit. There's however a catch though. Rakes only lasts for 3 levels. To work around this, you need to buy them in between stages to keep them active at stages 2 and 3 at all times. With that sorted out, we move into the final stage, which is by far the most brutal one yet. It features 1 dancing zombie, 2 Buckethead zombies, as well as 6 basic zombies and a jack in a box. The dancing zombies alone survive an entire hit from an hypnoshroom, making it a nightmare to deal with. Exter managed to beat this level before me by using his dancing zombie exploit, which he made a whole video about. I was eventually able to beat the level with no exploits whatsoever, after playing for a lot of painfully long hours. From the footage alone, you can also see how happy I was when I was finally able to beat the level. Truly a nightmare. Level 4-6 through level 4-9 didn't offer anything too special to us, but we're introduced to 2 plants that have been completely reworked for this mod. I'm talking about Starfruit and Split Pea. Starfruit, just like in PvZ Flipped, now costs 550 sun, and it fires 5 star projectiles in a 210 to 220 degrees arc, making it an incredibly effective but yet very expensive attacker. As for Split Pea, it got a significant buff. It now costs 300 sun and shoots 3 peas downwards instead of just 1, while also firing 2 peas in the opposite direction. This was of course made to keep the overall theme of the challenge, instead of introducing strictly better versions of pea shooters. 410 was an absolute headache and took me multiple tries because I kept losing to balloon zombies. Somehow they kept slipping past my cacti, while it was so dark that I couldn't even see them. On top of that, lane 1 also turned into a massive problem, since I had no explosives or instant use plants to protect it. Eventually, I was able to come up with a solution, by using starfruits and pumpkins to manage the chaos on lane 1. But as you can imagine, the high zombie density combined with the ever so trash conveyor belt RNG made this level far from being easy. 5-1 brings us to the roof and we immediately have to win the first level with no flower pots whatsoever, meaning we need to protect lane 1 with pumpkins and a bunch of explosive plants. Level 5-2 and 5-3 didn't exactly present a huge challenge to us, so we'll just quickly skip over them. In 5-4 I was experimenting with fume shrooms, which ultimately resulted into me losing twice, and on the second attempt even at the very end of the level, which was just heartbreaking to watch. On my third attempt I was using the good old starfruit setup with an ice shroom and doom shroom cycle for maximum value. After surviving the cursed Zen Garden, I was put into yet another nightmarish level. Turns out that the Bungee Blitz minigame in this level is just brutal. With nerfed chompers, weakened cherry bombs and no roof cleaners to bail me out, I was overwhelmed pretty fast with the sheer difficulty. Even the zombie density after the first flag is absolutely ridiculous. After tweaking the conveyor build to slightly increase my chances of getting more cherry bombs, it still took me a grueling 3 hours to finally beat this level. The key was to maximize the DPS of our chompers. To do that, I used a stair-like formation, as you can see in this gameplay footage right here. After countless attempts, a whole lot of frustration and some good RNG, I finally managed to scrape by and beat this ridiculously dumb section of the level. After that, surviving the rest of the roof levels was actually pretty easy, so while I'll let the gameplay footage play in the background, I wanted to take this time to share a few things with you. First off, for anyone interested, I've included a link in the video description to the full 7-hour raw gameplay recording of this entire run. If you're playing this mod and find yourself stuck, it might be helpful or at least somewhat entertaining. And yes, the total recording time for this video, including all of the fails, clocked at around 17 hours. Secondly, I want to talk about the idea for my next video. I'd love to interact more with you guys, our amazing communities, so here's what I've been planning. I'll be coding your modding ideas for the DLC mod into my next video, so you can drop your funniest and most ridiculous ideas in the comment section below. I'll randomly choose the ones I like the most to include them in the next video. And remember, the crazier your idea, the better. This concept was inspired by PVZ, so a big shoutouts to him. I truly can't wait to see what you guys come up with. With all of that gone, I think it's time to approach the final Zomboss level. Alright, here we go. We finally made it to the end of this video. Unlike most PVZ mods, this boss fight here doesn't allow for the classic roof cleaner glitch, because there are no roof cleaners, obviously. On top of that, the fight has been tweaked so no zombies can ever spawn in lane 1 for the reasons that are pretty obvious. This level was also actually an absolute horror. It took me countless attempts to figure out the right strategy, and at some point I started experimenting with my ice shrooms and jalapenos to freeze and damage Dr. Zomboss simultaneously. And with that and a crap ton of trial and error, I was finally able to overtake Zomboss. But before we end the video here, I want to wrap a few things up. Originally I wanted to include the minigames in this video as well, but they're proving to be incredibly difficult, if not outright impossible at their current state. Extra and I will need a lot more time to playtest them, so stay tuned for a future update on that. I also wanted to give a huge shoutouts to BinPVZ, Nonday, Bionic Agron and Samen for being our precious channel members. Seriously guys, thank you so much for the continued support for the channel. Even after I essentially went radio silent for the past 3 months, it really means the world to me, and I will try to become a lot more active in the near future. And to everyone who stuck until the very end, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the content, I'd really appreciate if you could consider leaving a like or to subscribe. It helps me a lot. And with that being said, I will see you all in the next video. Until then, take care and enjoy the holidays with your friends and family.
Hiya!